We have had Auckland Zoo passes for nearly a year now, and we love going with our 2 and 3 year old toddler. But I wanted to give you a full review of the benefits to Auckland Zoo and why it's worth having a pass, or why not. Hi, I'm Emily and I run the Organised Mum Lifestyle YouTube channel, posting every Friday about our adventures in New Zealand, working 40 hours a week with 2 toddlers of a 2 and 3 year old, sharing top tips and the adventures that we go on with our children to make the most of the age that they are. We love going on adventures around New Zealand, but also going to local things, and one of those things is Auckland Zoo. We got annual passes, which really aren't that expensive. They are the equivalent of going 3.5 times a year. Under 4 year olds are free anyway, but obviously the adults have to pay, and it's owned by the council. It is a little bit of a drive for us across Auckland, but it is worth it, and it's good for those few hour trips to keep the kids entertained. We have a 2 and 3 year old, and our 2 year old girl adores animals. So we go to Auckland Zoo quite regularly. It's a really safe environment. It's a good place for the children to run around. There's no cars. It's a good, safe environment. There are plenty of toilets. It is a clean area. And there's also baby changing facilities, which is quite important with the smaller children. An annual pass is ideal when you've got little ones. We're fitting activities in between naps. We're looking for something to keep them amused until the lunchtime nap, or after the lunchtime nap to keep them amused in the afternoon. A full day activity isn't going to work. So going to the zoo and making a day of it isn't really an option when you've got toddlers. So the pass is ideal. We can go, we can explore a certain area, just do 2 or 3 hours, and then we can go home. I have to say, most of the time we're only there for 2 hours. Sometimes it's 1.5 hours and they're too tired. And because we live a good distance away, the children will often sleep in the car on the way home or on the way to the next destination.
We are here at the zoo today. I have bad hair, so I'm wearing a hat. And we are with a slightly grumpy Tilly, which has just woken up from a quick morning nap because she got up early. Monty Man, where are we?
The zoo.
Are we at the zoo? What are we come to see? Giraffes. Can you see one? Yeah?
A poo-poo giraffe.
Oh, poo-poo giraffe. What animals can you see? Are we at the zoo? Yeah? Let's take a look.
New Zealand is a wonderful country, but it is at the bottom of the world. Often it gets forgotten about or considered as part of Australia sometimes, so we often don't get the best of the best. And I think this is the case when it comes to Auckland Zoo. It's quite a small zoo on the grand scale of international things, and I think they do an amazing effort with what they've got in the small space. Because it is centrally located, they've got limited space around the built environment that surrounds it. So they do make the best of it. One of the most amazing things is the chimpanzee display above the cafe. It's super cool. I think it's only a few years old. You can sit in the cafe and chimpanzees are swinging above your head in the cafe. It's a really good feature. Because it's centrally located, it is a bit of a challenge to get across town to get to. There's really good networks to connect to it, but you'll often find yourself stuck in traffic. Often, if you're going on a Saturday, it's quite busy to get there. And parking, I can't say anything positive about the parking. You have to pay. It's paid for parking, which in New Zealand is quite unusual. In England, that's to be expected, but in New Zealand, that's quite unusual, so you do need to pay. It does take cards, but it means it's an additional cost to your day out. There's also a strange one-way system in the main car park, and you'll often find people get frustrated and they go round and round in circles. So get there early, and I've got there before they've opened at 9:30, and I've found that people are already there parked up and waiting. My advice is to get there before 9:30, before it opens. They have built the most amazing tiger enclosure. It's fantastic, and the tiger can walk over your head. It's less than a year old, and it's really, really cool. We went the other week and the tiger did actually walk over our head. It was amazing. We've been 6 or 7 times and we haven't seen the tiger do that, so we got lucky that time. I think it was around feeding time, so it might be worth looking into when feeding time is. But what I like about having the pass is you can go and focus on a particular area and not worry about doing the whole entire thing. So if the kids just want to see the tigers this time, we go over there and we can ignore the rest of it. The top tip is go the opposite way to the traffic. When you get there, you'll turn right and go to the African safari. That's what everybody does. Go left. Go left, head towards the tiger, head towards the cafe, and go the opposite way to what they think you should do. This has been really good. We've jumped between the two depending on the time of day we've gone, and it's meant we've seen a wider variety. We haven't got stuck in the crowds. Now, I'll say crowds. This is New Zealand. We're nothing like the UK or even America. It's not that busy. It's busy on New Zealand scale, which I've now got very used to, and I class as busy. But when I went back to the UK, I realised what it meant by busy, and that you were in queues, there was a lot of people around, and that was definitely busy. So don't panic, it's not massively crowded, but just to try and avoid too many crowds, go the opposite way. Being a New Zealand zoo, there's a lot of focus on New Zealand animals, which is a really good opportunity to see animals of New Zealand. You wouldn't see it in many of the zoos around the world. So that's quite nice to have that section. There is a lot of focus on conservation and less of the animals, but you can learn about New Zealand conservation. The Department of Conservation have a sector there, which is really good. You almost get an insight into the New Zealand forest. Now, I've explored the New Zealand forest a lot, so I've done a lot of hiking and walking around New Zealand. So for me, I'm seeing this in a restricted environment, and it's a smaller version, so it's really good to show the kids for big walks that they can't go on. But I also hope it gives you inspiration to go and do some of the walks that you can do with children based on what the zoo is showing you, in that New Zealand conservation is really accessible. Having got back from a recent trip to the UK, one thing I've noticed is the lack of commercialisation in New Zealand. They're not trying to upsell you anything. Yes, you've had to pay for parking, and yes, you've paid for your ticket, but that's it. There's no rides inside that you need to pay extra for. There isn't any commercialisation. There's one thing. There's the diggers on the playground that are $4 a go. This is the only thing that I've found, apart from the traditional shops and restaurants, that are upselling. I like that. There's nobody in there trying to sell you a fairground ride. There's no additional charges to go and look at a certain animal. I really like the way it's got a lack of commercialisation. I also like the way you don't have to go through the shop to exit. This can often be a challenge when you've got small children and they're requesting to have this and that toy. The shop is expensive. I think it is higher priced than other shops within New Zealand, but there's some really nice, well thought out gifts. It is worth a look, but at least you don't have to go through when you've got your small child. Cafes and restaurants, there's quite a lot of choice inside, which is really good. I've not actually been to all of them, I've been to most of them, and I've found the pricing reasonable. It's not too expensive, it's not the cheapest. They're not forcing you to pay the high prices just because that's the only place to go. They're actually offering you a good selection. There is some good variety and there is some good choice at reasonable prices. If you're going for elephants, you will be disappointed. They are down to one elephant, and I think she's leaving in a few months. So it's a little bit disappointing, but I think this comes under the challenges of it being a city zoo and not having the space. So I think they've had a bit of a tidy up, and they're renovating and improving certain areas, and the elephants are part of that. But as I said, the tigers are amazing, the chimpanzees are amazing, and also there is a Southeast Asia section where they have underwater jungle, and you can see the fish and the animals through the tank. You can go right up to it, it's humid inside the building, and it really gives a good effect of what they're trying to achieve. I found the feeding times quite limited. They do seem to have a schedule, but often we're only there for about 2 hours and we'll tend to miss them. They're all around the centre of the day, which is our baby's nap time, so we haven't actually been to any feeding times yet, but I'm sure they're great if you've got older kids and you can stay a bit longer. Playgrounds are good. Really like the playground at the end. They've put some good thought into it. They're quite natural, a good chance for the kids to play on the slides and climb on things and burn that last bit of energy before they need to leave. There's also a new Tots playground on the way in just after the flamingos, and that's a nice sort of safe environment that's quite organic in the trees and designed for much smaller children under the age of 5. And finally, one of the benefits to having the zoo annual pass is you also get a discount to MOTAT, which is the Museum of Transport and Technology. We used to be members of that the previous year. We really enjoy MOTAT. It worked really well when the kids were even smaller. I think we'll rejoin and go back again next year. What I liked about it was the inside space, so you could go in the winter. They also have special events, trains and different areas, so it gives a wide variety having both the Auckland Zoo and MOTAT. Oh, and they're next door to each other. That makes a big difference. And you can go across, so you could spend a full day at both. Obviously with our children and their attention spans, that's not something we'll do, but also worth looking at MOTAT. I talk more about Auckland Zoo and MOTAT in my Things to Do with Children in Auckland's During Winter video, which I'll put a link to here. If you're just visiting Auckland and wanting something to do, the zoo is well worth a visit. If you're living locally, it is worth having the annual pass. Use it to your advantage. Make sure you go regularly. It's ideal for small children in fitting around nap times. Don't expect too big things. It's not Australia Zoo, it's not London Zoo, but it's really, really good for New Zealand. I think it demonstrates New Zealand well. It makes use of the space in the city with the space that it's got. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. I've got lots more things planned and lots of adventures coming up. I post every Friday to my YouTube channel with our adventures around New Zealand, what it's like to live in New Zealand, and also top tip for being an organised mum. I'll see you in my next video.